This is riveting, I know. Mm. Oh, wow, what? No. Welcome to AO, everyone.
It's a pleasure to have you.
This is my friend Frank, who also happens to be Father Eric's nephew.
It's a pleasure to have everybody here.
So, we're gonna do a little rendition of Hotel San Paulo. Oh shoot, this is not auto scroll, so I will have to scroll by hand. All right. Here, stuck at St. Paul's.
We'll be here all month.
Thank you, thank you. It's weird there's no crowd here, so I have to look this way. Thank you, Matt. All right, our next song is...
What tune do we not know that we're playing next?
We are playing... let's just do a little wagon wheel. Father Luke, will you join us?
All right, give it up for Father Luke, everybody.
Monsieur Don Luca. Father is a very talented drummer. And priest. Can you be talented? Yeah, they're talented priests. Hallie's got the Mercedes Benz. It means you're crazy.
Say how you said wagon wheel?
Yes.
Doing wagon wheel. All right, I'm ready. Let's do it.
Okay.
Frank, you ready? Frank's ready. All right, let's do it.
Head down south to the land of the pine. Been my way to North Carolina. Staring up the road, pretty guy, I see headlights. You guys can join in. Made down the coast in 17 hours. Picking me a bouquet dog with flowers. And I'm hoping for a rally, I can see my baby tonight. So rock me, mama, like a wagon wheel. Rock me, mama, any way you feel. Hey, mama, rock me. Rock me, mama, like the wind and the rain. Rock me, mama, like a southbound train. Hey, mama, rock me. Get up here. I need someone to scroll. Get up. One more time. All right, I'll do it. Running down the coast up in New England, I was born to be a filler in no time string band. My baby plays the guitar, I pick the banjo now. Oh, the North Country winter keeps getting me now. Lost my money playing poker, so I had to leave town. But I ain't turning back to living that old life no more. So rock me, mama, like a wheel. Rock me, mama, like a wheel. Hey, mama, rock me. Rock me, mama, like the wind and the rain. Rock me, mama, like a southbound train. Hey, mama, rock me. Walking to the south, out of Roanoke, caught a trucker out of Philly, had a nice long talk. But he's headed west from the Cumberland Gaps to Johnson City, Tennessee. And I gotta get a move on, babe, for the sun. I hear my baby calling my name, and I know that she's the only one. And if I die in Raleigh, at least I will die free. So rock me, mama, like a wagon wheel. Rock me, mama, any way you feel. Hey, mama, rock me. Rock me, mama, like the wind and the rain. Rock me, mama, like a southbound train. Hey, mama, rock me. When I find myself in times of trouble, Mother Mary comes to me, speaking words of wisdom, let it be. And in my hour of darkness, she's standing right in front of me, speaking words of wisdom, let it be. Let it be, let it be, let it be, let it be. Whisper words of wisdom, let it be. Let it be, let it be, let it be, let it be. Whisper words of wisdom, let it be. So rock me, mama, like a wagon wheel. Rock me, mama, any way you feel. Hey, mama, rock me. Rock me, mama, like the wind and the rain. Rock me, mama, like a southbound train. Hey, mama, rock me.
All right. Seyha, good work. Thank you, Frank. Welcome, everyone out there. Welcome to Alpha Omega, week 2 of Quarantine Edition. And just give us a second here. We're going to get set up for the main event tonight, and that is an interview testimony of yours truly, Seyha Samweber, who was just playing the guitar. So he's going to get back up here, and we're going to have a little fun, have a little interview. So, all right. All right, just a quick word to everyone out there watching tonight. I know some of you are watching on YouTube and some of you are watching on Facebook. So hopefully on either platform, you can submit some questions as the night goes on. So Seyha and I are going to have a conversation tonight, and then at the very end, we're going to take a few questions.
Yep. From the audience or from
the folks out there.
You guys out there on the streaming platforms.
Because I think Seyha's testimony is going to generate a few questions.
I feel like Father Eric's going to yell at me if I don't do this. So.
Look at that. Seyha just took off his hat so we could see his nice, dark Cambodian hair.
Thank you, Father.
Wonderful. All right. Now, Seyha and I have known each other for about 3 years. I'm Father Luke. This is Seyha. We've been living together at the rectory for 3 years because Seyha's been a focused missionary here at St. Paul's.
That's right.
But the journey started actually not in the United States of America, but started in Cambodia. So tonight, Seyha, we're going to go through a lot of your life history, and it's a truly amazing story. And I'm hoping that this story can inspire all of us to think of the ways that God has intervened in our lives through other people. Right? So Seyha's going to give his testimony, and it's going to be centered on the people who have shown him God's love in his life. And that started at a young age because Seyha was born in Cambodia at a at a time when there's a lot of turmoil in the country. So send us back to the day you were born. You remember that day?
I can try my best. But
All right, send us back. Give us a little history. Year 0, what was going on in your life?
So yeah, I was born in Cambodia, as Father said, back in 1992. And yeah, my mom, it was just my mother and I. We were very poor. We were homeless and
Didn't know your father at all?
never knew my dad.
So your dad wasn't in the picture.
Never.
And how old was your mom when she had you?
She was about, 18-ish. I don't really know off the top. Well, I don't know.
Okay.
But she was really young.
She was young.
Out of wedlock, just a young girl in Cambodia.
Okay. Now, and this is 1992, and we were talking
Roughly. Sorry.
roughly 1992. We'll get to that later. But now, Seyha, your mother obviously is the first person to show you love, right? She's the first one. Your dad's not in the picture. Your mom's there with you. Who's your mom? Tell us about your mom.
Yeah, so my mother's name is Seyha, and she was born, I don't know when she was born, but she was born during a time of turmoil in the Cambodian government. She lost her parents to the Khmer Rouge, the Cambodian Civil War at the time. It killed a lot, over 2 million people. It's like million people, I think. My grandparents were included in that. So I never
Your
knew
grandparents were killed in like the 70s, 80s?
It was like the 80s, I think, yeah. So she was growing up in the 80s, and I should know a little bit more about my culture, but a little bit, or like the history, but a little bit of background. The Khmer Rouge was a communist group founded by Pol Pot, and he studied in France and learned a lot about Marxism and the Communist Manifesto, and he wanted to execute that in Cambodia, and so he wanted everything to go back to the year 0, to restart everything. Anyone who looked educated or was educated was sent to the killing fields, which was a death sentence. It's these fields that they work, and everyone had the same job. There were little people in charge, and they put children in charge actually to commit some of these genocides that happened.
So basically, your mom is growing up in Civil War.
Pretty much, yeah, around that time.
Your mom's growing up in Civil War. She becomes a single mother at age 18.
Yeah, so my mom, she was around 12 when the government, when the Khmer Rouge was overtaken. So after that time, she wasn't, so she was, it was a funny story. My great uncle and her found each other again because after the Khmer Rouge regime has ended, they ordered everyone to go back to their villages to find any loved one or family members, and they found each other. And so my great uncle adopted my mom from like age 10 or 12 to about 16 or 18.
Your mom lost her parents.
She lost her parents.
She only had her uncle, her great uncle.
Yeah, and so he raised her, and then she left the house. I don't think anything bad, because like my uncle remembered meeting me when I was a little kid, or when I was a baby, and then he hadn't seen me until my mom passed away.
Okay. So that's quite a situation to be in. You just think of your mother, right? Her parents aren't around.
Yeah.
The father of her child's not around, and she's got you, little Seyha, little baby Seyha, and she's there in Cambodia, and this is when Seyha, tell us about just the living situation that you had from about age 0 to 6, right? You were basically homeless.
Yeah, I don't like to use, maybe the word homeless isn't, I was never without a home. Like my mom was my home, and we just lived on this army cot on a construction site, and like with just like a tarp over our head. But I do remember like fondly of my mom just snuggling in the same like cot together, just her and I. Wow. And so my mother was very affectionate with me. She was also stern. I remember being spanked one time I stole money to buy a plastic sword. We needed that money to buy food, and I was like, I want a toy. And so she disciplined me, but it was never out of anger. Like I've known for a long time that my mom really cared and loved me. So
Okay. Were there other people around? Were you?
I mean, there was a community of people that were around. They knew who my mother was, you know, and she worked on the construction site. So.
All right. So that's sounds like the initial person in your life that showed you love was your mom.
Yep.
Obviously in a difficult situation, but she loved you. She showed you affection, even to the point of disciplining you, which is a sign of love, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And so that, and how great, of love that is. I think to this day, I see in you, Seyha, like the love of your mom for you. I mean, I think you could say that it's been throughout your whole life.
I would say, yeah.
Now,
she definitely gets all my good qualities, or I get my good qualities from her.
But you didn't have your mom for too long.
No. Yeah. So when I was 6 years old, my mom got really sick, around 6, and she had another child, had a little sister, and she contracted HIV/AIDS, and so did my little sister. And so about a year, my little sister died, and my mom had to go to the hospital. And so during that time, I was taking care of my mom, doing all the cleaning, cooking, laundry, and
You were how old?
I was 6, or 6 or 7, and there was a priest that would always come once a week to help me with my chores, and I would do the laundry. And so he would do the laundry, and I would always bring the clothes, but other people in the hospital saw him, and they call him the barang, which means the white person.
So your mom's in the hospital.
My mom's in the hospital, and Father Jim is this
Father Jim's coming
in and helping take care of my mom and I. And I would always run up to him with like these extra clothes, like moi tiet, which means one more in Cambodian. And so we kind of definitely exploited him a little bit.
Father Jim must have been smitten by you.
He's gotta be, No.
Little 6-year-old Seyha coming and telling him one more piece of clothing for the laundry.
Yeah, he really showed me, I think, reflecting back now, just servant leadership and just, continuing to die to yourself and sharing Christ with others, and being in the midst of people's pain with them. And so,
Now, so this is kind of the second person that showed you the love of God is Father Jim. Tell us about Father Jim. I mean, he's a priest and he's in Cambodia.
Yep. So he was a Maryknoll priest. And he did a lot of work with people with HIV/AIDS at the time in the 90s, and partly it was just housing them. So I mean, it was just a whole new ministry because.
But he's not from Cambodia. He's a Maryknoll missionary.
Yeah, so he was an American, and he just worked tirelessly to serve the poor and the needy, and so that was his mission and call in life. And he is an incredible man. I'm sorry to say that he passed away a couple of years ago, but I'm sure he's praying for us,
So he's there with you in the hospital when you are with your mother. Your mother's dying, right? She's dying of HIV/AIDS. And what do you remember about that? Do you have vivid memories of that day? Was there a funeral or anything? Or?
Yeah, so so Father Jim he eventually moved us from the hospital to the Missionaries of Charity. And so they had 2 homes. One were for adults with suffering of HIV/AIDS, and one was for children whose parents couldn't take care of them. So it wasn't an orphanage, but it was just a children's home. And so at the time he placed me there, I would always still go visit my mom every now and then. And
right. So you're not staying at the hospital all the time. Instead, you're staying with the Missionaries of Charity.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so you got this Maryknoll priest coming in. He's saying, little Seyha needs a place to go.
Yeah.
We're going to put him with the Missionaries of Charity.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Who are the Missionaries of Charity?
So the Missionaries of Charity is an order founded by Mother Teresa of Calcutta, Saint Mother Teresa of Calcutta. And there's another person that's very influential in my life. And it just, she shows the effects that you can have by your yes without ever meeting anyone. And so her community and her order inspired this woman named Sister Lillian, who was basically my main caretaker. And I still have, I wish I had it, I should have brought it, but I have a little communion card from her that said, "Dear Seyha, congratulations on your first communion. I pray that Jesus will be your best friend at all times."
Wow.
And so it's in my Bible right now. And so, but yeah, she was the one that was kind of in charge of
Was
me.
there a lot of missionaries of charity, or was it new?
There was like 3 or 4 of them.
Just 3 or 4 sisters, and they're taking care of you.
They're taking care of the house, which had a lot of children, and I just was placed in there. So
One of the children there.
yeah, I caused a lot of heartaches for them.
Oh man.
I'm sure.
Oh man. Can you just imagine, 4 missionaries of charity, 4 nuns taking care of all these little Cambodian children, say how they're leading the pack,
I wasn't leading the pack. I was doing my own thing as usual.
You did your own thing. Okay. Wow. That's really a beautiful image of again, spiritual fatherhood and spiritual motherhood. You don't know your father, your mother's dying. A priest steps into your life. 4 sisters step into your life, or you step into their life, right? And that takes you through this tremendous time where you're an orphan. You're about to be.
Well, yeah, and so that's not my mother wanted Father Jim to adopt me. She would always
She told the priest to
yeah,
adopt
she's
you.
like, please adopt my son, and he's a Catholic priest. He couldn't adopt me, but he promised her that that I would be taken care of, and so he thought that putting me with the sisters was that, and he continued to pray for me. And then around the same time, and this is where my adopted parents step in. They were looking to adopt, and so they finally felt called and felt free to do it, and they didn't care about age. And so the adoption agency, because when my mom had passed away by this time in late November, the adoption agency was like, well, do you care about age? And my parents were like, no, we're open. And so they kind of came and checked me out just to...
So there was the sisters, and then there was an adoptive agency kind of working with
they
the
were
sisters.
working with us, yeah.
And then you call them your parents, your adoptive parents, right?
Yeah.
They are the next people to come into your life. So tell us about your parents.
Oh man, my parents are just amazing people, and they're so wonderful. I hope they're watching now. I did not send them the link, so they'll have to watch it later. But anyway,
it's recorded, so it'll be all right.
but yeah, they're just incredible people. They were in Cambodia. They were in Cambodia and Thailand working with the refugees in the late 80s. And they found their faith back in college, and they found each other, and they both wanted to serve in this way. And so they felt called to go work in the refugee camps. They only worked there for like 1 or 2 years, and then they did work with nonprofits, helping build, helping Cambodians, start their own small businesses and stuff. And so they worked for a lot of nonprofit organizations and all that stuff. But yeah, my parents around that time, they had an older son, my older brother, and they talked as a family that this is something that we were open to, and they came and.
Yeah, was adopting something on their radar? Since the beginning of their marriage? Did it come up when they went to Cambodia? When did they start thinking about adopting?
I have no idea. I've never asked them that question. That's a good question to ask them. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I knew that they just were open. They wanted another kid, and they wanted to adopt. And yeah, and they went and came. So the funny story is, they came and visited me at the Missionaries of Charity. And they found out I knew Father Jim, and they worked with Father Jim in Cambodia. And so they quickly went over to him and was like, hey, Father, because we were next door neighbors, or they were, And so they were like, who is this Seyha kid? Should we adopt him? And Father Jim was like, oh yeah, he'll keep you young. And so...
he'll keep you young.
Yeah.
Father Jim saw in you the youthful spirit.
I hope, yeah, I think so.
The youthful spirit. That's good. You were a young child, which is what you're supposed to be, right?
Yeah.
So that's great. Now, do you feel like you were picked out of a group? Do you feel like somehow the other children with you at the sisters were not adopted? I mean, what do you know about anyone else that was with you at that time?
So I didn't know much. I was kind of a very isolated kid, kind of stuck to myself. I hung out with I was going to say students, but people are the children there. But yeah, I was going through a lot. I lost my mom. I was at her funeral. I was very quiet, and so yeah. So
Okay.
But no, another side cool story is I was adopted on Holy Saturday. So on Holy Saturday, the first thing I ever did with my family was go to an Easter Vigil Mass. So it's just like another beautiful sign of like new life.
Wow. That's incredible.
Yeah. So
it's incredible. It's
and so this is all given to, like, my parents are telling me these stories now.
right. You didn't know it at the time. You weren't
Yeah.
you weren't aware. I mean, that in a spiritual way, aren't we all adopted at Easter?
Yeah.
That's when Jesus rises from the dead and brings us into his family.
Mm-hmm.
So that's incredible.
Yeah.
That's really, really incredible. And adoption, right, is the great, more than, it's the Christian life. Like, we are adopted by the Father into his family, right? And that's the love of God for us. And at age 6, you experience that love rapidly in a matter of months. Father Jim, sisters, adoptive parents, they all come into your life from November to Holy Saturday. It's like 6 months, right? Mm-hmm. Where you were really in a vulnerable position, and a lot of people stepped in and like showed you love, which is beautiful, beautiful. All right, so you're in Cambodia, you get adopted, but you don't stay there for too long.
Nope. Yeah. So we lived there until I was 10 years old, and then we moved back to the United States. And so, yeah, the journey.
You came to a new country.
I did. I have dual citizenship, so. But yeah, I visited because my parents lived here, so we would come and visit once a year for 4 years. But yeah, I remember the first time I saw snow, I ran out in my boxers. It's just 'cause.
Did you stay quiet, or did you kind of open up?
I opened up pretty easily. Yeah, so
Because I was afraid that you're quiet, you got to learn a new language, you got to learn English.
Yeah, so I learned English like from 6 on. I went to international school and everything. But yeah, I warmed up to my dad really quickly. My mom, not so much. Eventually I did, and that took even after college to warm up to her more. But I was an idiot back then. Sorry, Mom.
We're glad you grew out of that.
I did.
No,
Yeah.
okay, good. So you're coming to the United States of America, age 10, and you grow up in northern Minnesota?
I grew up in the Twin Cities in Minnesota because that's where my parents are from. Thank you, Mariah.
All right, so what's it like? You're a teenager in the Twin Cities. Anything special about that?
Not much. I think I just lived the same. Like, when we came to the United States, we became pretty Americanized. I would say I was a really awkward 5th grader and middle schooler. I mean, who isn't? And then in high school, I think I joined the swim team. I was on the soccer team, track, and ultimate frisbee. And I got caught up in the popularity of friends, women, and partying and all that stuff.
Did you miss Cambodia? Did you want to go back?
I did. I mean, we went back once or twice. So
yeah, even your adopted parents were in Cambodia for many years.
Yeah, no, they were. So they were there for 15 years in Southeast Asia total, about 15. But what was really awesome is actually three Easters ago, I got to go back, and I've been praying for my mother, my biological mother, for so long, and I never knew. I just knew that the faith, we're called to, answer Christ's call to conversion, and so I was wrestling with God's, He has His sacraments and He's bound to them, but He's not bound by them, and I always wrestled where my mom's soul was at. But last 3 Easters ago,
yeah, your mom knew Father Jim.
She knew Father Jim, but I don't know who baptized her. But I found out 3 Easters ago she was baptized, the name Catherine, and so I think it was named after Catherine of Labouré because the next feast day was a couple of days later, and it was just an incredible moment for me because it was just answers to years of prayer of wondering where is my mom, and now I don't have to wonder.
Do you think that Father Jim was the one to tell her about Jesus and about Christianity?
I'm pretty positive that's probably the case. Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
But yeah, I never knew until recently. So, but anyway, back to high school was. I mean, from basically 10 to 19 years old, I was just living. I think what you think the average high school kid was living, just for themselves, very selfish. I was wrestling a lot with my identity of why me. I had the survivor's guilt. I was coming to become an adult, and I was wrestling with the idea of why was I the only why was I taken out of such a, what I thought at the time was a miserable situation. And so I was a very angsty, rebellious teen. I took a year off before going to college. I lived in Florida as a beach bum, working, and then I lived in Alaska as a Alaskan bum.
All right. But this is something you plan to do. You said, I finished high school, I'm gonna go Florida, go to Alaska, do my adventurous thing.
Yeah, I wanted to go to Hawaii and just like surf, but my mom was like, can you at least find a job somewhere else with family? So I had family in Florida.
Wow.
So.
What was an exciting story from that year? Florida, Alaska, you're 18.
Alaska, I shot a gun for the first time, and it was awesome. And I never wanted to own a gun. I don't really want to now. I kind of do want to a little bit, but it's not something I need. But yeah, it was really fun. Like I had to carry a gun with me everywhere because if I didn't, I didn't know what wild animal I would encounter, a moose, a bear, just in case, so it wasn't for people, it was for animals, and it was this .44 revolver, which I don't know, I shot it, had a kick.
That's awesome.
That was
pretty good adventure.
Yeah, it was very fun.
So what happens to you in this year before college? Anything that you knew you were going to have this year, right? Did you think it was just going to be a fun year and then you move on to college, or?
Yeah, I thought it was going to be a fun year of just partying, traveling, and meeting new people. And then when I lived in Alaska, my boss, Larry, was just an incredible man. He built his own company by hand. After he finished college, I think only took him 2 years, he moved his entire family to Alaska, worked on the railroads, and then eventually started learning, self-teaching himself things about hunting, and eventually started his own hunting business, and it took off. And he got his own pilot's license. He flew clients everywhere. He just built a company by hand. He also built his house by hand from just the resources that were around him. And he just.
How did you end up working for him?
I randomly met a guy when I was living in Florida I was like, I want to work in Alaska. And he's like, oh, I know a guy. Here's his email. And so I emailed Larry, and he emailed back. And I was like, all right, I'll get a plane ticket. And he picked me up, and I started working for him.
Wow, Larry sounds like a good guy to get to know.
He was a very good Christian man too. I remember sitting at the dinner table with him and his family, and they were always praying together. And I didn't think about it not until more recently, but I think he was the first witness of the Christian life for me, outside of my family. Where he just was a man sure of himself. He knew who he was.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, your parents were going to Sunday Mass. You were going to Sunday Mass. Yeah. Did you keep that up? What was your faith like?
I kind of stopped going when I was 16. My parents had a rule that said that if you are old enough to drive, you don't have to go to Mass.
So you turned 16, got your license, you're like, peace. Sunday is for Seyha, not for God.
Sunday's for sleep.
Okay.
So that was my mentality. Not right now.
All right. Did Larry take you to church up there in Alaska?
Yeah, he did. He took me to a Baptist service, and it was very strange. It was the first time I realized that there was different denominations too. Okay. So yeah, and then they had Bible study afterwards, and I would just sit in the corner listening. I wasn't paying attention, but
you were going to a little Christian service up there in Alaska.
I had nothing else to do, so yeah. But he paved the way for college. When I went to college, I fell back into the old partying and all that stuff.
Where'd you go? Where'd you go to school?
I went to the University of Minnesota Duluth.
All right. Who are they? Who are they again? The Bulldogs or something?
No. Go Bulldogs.
Bulldogs, yeah, I think they're the Bulldogs. They have a good hockey team.
Great.
It's way up north. Some long winters up there.
Yep. I remember getting a snow day in April.
Okay, that's winter.
Late April.
Yeah. All right, so Duluth, you show up. So you're 19, not 18. You're a freshman. You're a little bit older than most of your classmates. And okay, so you're not going to Sunday Mass. You presumably not really praying.
No, I was. Yeah, It's funny, when my parents dropped me off at college, they were like, "You should really check out the Newman Center, Seyha."
Really, they said that?
My mom.
Oh.
And I scoffed it at her. I was like, "Yeah, right. I don't want anything to do with that."
All right. Good job, Mom.
Yeah, good job, Mother.
Good thing to say when you drop your kid off for college.
So,
right there. Just say it. Even if they don't appreciate it, they hear it.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Mom. So I mean, when I went into college, I just wanted to get done with my 4 years and move on, and yeah, it was just another thing that I had to pass through. But it was there when like really my faith started coming alive. I met a Focus missionary named Andy Biney and Dan Kresbach, and he like barehanded me, which is, you just go and randomly meet students and get to know them. And so
This was your first semester in college.
First semester in college, and we were playing football or something, and he just introduced himself and just talked to me like very casually. And then throughout the conversation, he invited me to this party, which I thought was going to be like this kegger, and it turned out to be a party at
root beer kegger.
Yeah, it was a root beer kegger, but it wasn't. And so we...
Classic Catholic party, root beer kegger.
Oh yeah, and there was a bonfire too, which was awesome. But on the way there, he started asking me about my faith. It was the first time I think anyone had really asked me about my faith. I think I was raised in it, but I told him. I mean, I was raised in it. Sorry, not I think. I was raised.
Imagine he asked you about your faith. You could have been like, I hung out with priests and sisters and missionaries my whole life.
I did at one point. Now that
What did you say to him? What did you say about your faith?
Yeah, it was like, I was raised Catholic, but it's not really something important to me. I don't really know if there's a God or not, but something along that line. I don't know word for word, but it was just very apathetic kind of response. And then he invited me to Mass after that. So.
All right, that's a good missionary. Invites you to the Catholic root beer kegger, invites you to Mass.
Yep.
Boom.
And I said
One
yes.
step to the next.
Yeah, I just said yes because I thought Andy just seemed like a really stellar dude.
And you knew what Mass was. I mean, you went to Mass
Yeah.
growing up. So, so you went. What was Mass like?
I don't remember it actually. I went. I liked the homily. I think the priest up in Duluth I think he's pretty cool. I've heard.
All right.
So.
You had Father Mike, didn't you?
Yeah, I had Father Mike.
Father Mike Schmitz.
Yep.
He was your chaplain.
He was my chaplain.
And you had Andy Biney as your missionary.
Yep.
And Dan Krebsbach as your Focus team leader.
Mm-hmm.
Those are three solid Catholic
They
dudes
are
right there.
amazing men.
Wow.
They inspire me so much to continue to pursue Christ, and it's incredible.
So,
Andy went to school here, and so did Dan. And Andy's now like a doctor with 5 kids and loves the Lord. And anyway,
He's my friend in college.
yeah, Father Luke knew him.
So, Andy, you can watch this on replay. Hope you're out there. College, first semester, you get invited to Mass. You go to Mass. Anything happen? When did you start to grow in your faith?
Yeah, so really the turning point moment was I was invited by Andy to go to the First Timers Retreat, which is just like a very typical retreat. And yeah, there was when I met Father Mike gave a talk he gave a gospel invitation, and he gave a talk about the Eucharist and confession and what those both were. And I had no idea I didn't know that the Eucharist was a thing and that confession was a thing, even though I was raised Catholic my entire life. Mm-hmm. And so it was in adoration. I just had this profound encounter with the Lord where I knew that he was real. I was still I wasn't sure. I just went to Mass because I was hanging out with Andy, and he was a cool guy. But
right, but you had to kind of make it your own, or you make a decision. God put it on your heart.
Yeah, he's either I'm real, and it has to change your life. You can't be living the life that you've been living, or I'm not, and then it doesn't matter. And there's just too much evidence. I started reflecting on my own life and just the love of my parents, love of my mother, and the sisters, and Father Jim. And I knew that God's love was real because all these people just sacrificed so much for me that I didn't do to deserve and earn it because of their love for Jesus. And so I knew that love was real through that encounter and through the Eucharist, and I was just hit with a sledgehammer of all my sins that I've ever committed. Because I've never gone
While you're in adoration.
While I was in adoration. I've never gone to confession.
The Holy Spirit, as Jesus says, right, convicted you and convicts us of our sins. Right? This is in the Gospel of John, the Holy Spirit will convict us. And that took place in your heart just during that time of adoration.
Yeah, and then I kept on making compromises with the Lord, but I didn't want to go down to confession. But eventually, I just felt like someone picked me up and brought me down. And I was talking to the Lord myself. I was like, all right, I'll go. There was 2 priests, but I won't go with Father Mike. I'll go with this other priest. But The other priest had left. I was the last person there, and I was like going in, and I was shaking
With Father Mike?
with Father Mike.
Oh, man.
But he like walked me through it. He's like, yeah, I mean, it's like, forgive me, Father, I've never done this. Can you help me? He's like, yeah, no problem. Are you Catholic? Yes. It's like, all right, this is the step that you did, and and I, like,
Oh, he read your soul? No, I was kidding.
yeah, and so, but afterwards, I felt like confession was also where I encountered the Lord. Just felt this weight just completely lifted. I felt like I could jump 10 stories. And I ran over to Andy, and I was like, Andy, I want to join your Bible study. You know, like, I need to know who this Jesus guy is.
I bet Andy was over there praying hard for you. He was over there praying for you. That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's a great conversion right there. Adoration, confession. I want to join a Bible study. And I'm guessing you stuck in that Bible study.
I did for a year or two, and so after my conversion, and this is what my life is like after, you know, encountering Christ in this radical way, I just started to pray, you know, 5 minutes a day, started reading the Gospels, started with John, and then I moved from Matthew on, and I started becoming more involved in my my Newman Center.
Yep.
And yeah, I got involved in my Bible study. It was hard. It was really hard, but also really rewarding.
Yeah, you had a good environment. You had an environment where you had a Newman Center, you had a priest, you had retreats, and yeah, prayer, friendship, and discipleship. Andy, you met with Andy, didn't you?
Yep, I started meeting Andy weekly, and yeah, he continued to build me up. It's where I could lead my own Bible studies. And eventually I took over the Newman music ministry, just helping, and even in that I was just trying to help people encounter Christ in not just the music, but in the community that we form. And so that was one of my roles up there in Duluth.
Wow. So I think, you know, looking back at your journey, I mean, it's really beautiful. I mean, it's very, very interesting, and just so many places along the way. God's love has just stepped into your life and kind of brought you along. And I think in our own lives we can say the same thing, right? Life is about timing, they say, right? It's just like God's timing is God's timing. It's for our best, right? And people just step in and say something to bring us along when we need it. And you can see that all along your journey, which is amazing. Yeah, do you ever, anyone back in Cambodia, like the sisters or the Maryknoll missionaries, do you pray for them? Do you write them? Anything?
I do. I pray for Father Jim. Sister Lillian, my mom, oh my gosh, she's going to text me if she sees it. But she's been not harassing.
This is the sisters who knew you at age 6.
Yeah, this is the sister that took care of me.
She's still in Cambodia?
She's in Japan right now, and we have her address. I just need to write her a letter.
We should Skype with her, Zoom with her.
See, yeah, hopefully if you know Sister Lillian in Japan, please circulate this video to her. I would love to talk to her and thank her for all the good work that she's done and all the things she's had to put up with.
Wow, so. That's awesome. That's awesome. We gotta find her. So, well, maybe we should take a few questions.
Yeah.
You know, I think the rest of Seyha's testimony, a lot of the viewers already know, right? Yeah. You end up becoming a focused missionary, and you kind of give some of this love back in mission. You've been doing that for a few years, but I think a lot of that story people know.
Yeah.
So we might have a few questions, and I think if there's a couple, you guys can shout them out to me, and I'll hear them. Got any out there? Or audience questions? But, have we?
Yeah.
So.
Oh, I mean, there's no question. There's no question.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, man.
All right.
But yeah, I would say that I think my story is wrapped up with a lot of other people who said yes to the Lord, and I just really want to encourage our students and those who are listening to, no matter what God's calling you to, just say yes and to continue to follow His will. And what I love is just each of these people have different. It was just a different vocation and a different story, right? But they all responded to God in their own way. They're giving God their hearts in their own particular way. And that's
and it was a radical way. I mean, even your mother, right, who was a single mother at age 18, right? She steps into the vocation of motherhood.
Yeah.
Right. She takes that on, Father Jim, right? He's a priest. He gives his life to God. All those sisters, right? They make that radical gift to God of their life.
Well, yeah.
Your adoptive parents are missionaries. So these are, when you make the big choice of your vocation, God's love like follows that,
Yeah,
that's what I see.
And that's right, and that's exactly it. And just like I think oftentimes we're afraid to give God our hearts because we just we're afraid that He might be calling us to the priesthood or to religious life, but He just wants our hearts and to trust in Him. And so and I don't want people to fear that, that like He'll lead us wherever, and that our trust is in Him.
Yeah.
Okay, we do have.
We got a couple questions out there. Let's hear them.
So how did you decide to become a focus missionary?
So tell us about what your job now as a focus missionary. How did you do that?
Yeah, so I was working as a youth minister in the Twin Cities after I graduated college, and I just couldn't shake off the feeling that God wanted me.
So you finished college. You worked for the church.
I was
at a
working for the
parish.
church at a parish, and yeah, honestly, it was just like I felt this is where God was calling me, and I had to say yes to it, and like I was really sad when I said yes, and happy at the same time. Like mainly because like my best friend was in the Twin City, my families are in the Twin City, like my community was all there, and I just built it after a year, and then
Right. The big thing about being a focus missionary is that you're
just sent wherever. You're just sent wherever.
You're going to live in a new place with new people.
But God has never failed me before, and so why would He stop now?
Yeah.
And so that was like, so when I knew that was where God was calling me, I just said yes.
And you had Andy and Dan in your life who were focus missionaries.
Mm-hmm.
You saw that lived out.
Oh yeah, and they did. Like my life was incredibly changed by focus missionaries, and so.
All right.
Could you talk about how you fuse your continued love and adventure with Catholic mission?
All right, so we know about your adventures at age 18 and 19, that whole year, Florida, Alaska. But you're still adventurous, right? You became a focus missionary. How do you still get your fix for adventures?
Yeah, I think it goes back to like just giving God our hearts and like even offering that adventurous spirit up to Him and trusting that to Him. Because like I turned away. I didn't study abroad in college, even though I really wanted to, because I felt the Lord calling me to stay and invest in my community. But at the same time, I've been on several mission trips. I've like worked. Like last summer, I was in Colorado rock climbing with college students and just teaching them about the gospel. And so, like He opens these doors and opportunities.
I mean, the missionary life is adventuresome.
It is,
So
yeah.
it's like, if you want adventure, become a missionary. I mean,
Amen.
there you go. So.
And like God wants to use your desires,
All right. Maybe, I think that's it from the audience. So, I think my last thought, Seyha, is just trying to prepare people for, Holy Saturday, Easter Sunday, and thinking about your story. That the day that you were adopted is just like so beautiful. I mean, these upcoming events of Holy Week are God drawing us into His family. I mean, adopting us, claiming us, right? Jesus uniting Himself to us, and He is the Son,
Yeah, and I was gonna say, and like we don't know what the whole Corona or the COVID-19 situation, but I really want to encourage our students to not lose hope. We are an Easter people, and we still are, and Christ is Lord, no matter what happens to the world. Like that doesn't change the fact of who He is, and we're still called to share that joy, no matter, and even in the little ways, to our friends, our family. Like I just want us to remember that, like in this time, and we don't know what the Easter is going to look like, but we still have the hope of Christ, and we can still live it out, and it's a daily struggle, Father Luke has lived with me for 3 years. He's seen a lot of my struggles, but yeah.
Seyha makes us holy. And we make Seyha holy. So, Seyha,
You too.
man, awesome story. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
I lived with you for 3 years. I didn't know all your story, and so it's so awesome to hear how God works in people's lives. So I encourage people out there, share your stories with one another, maybe with your friends over Zoom in these days, and get to know each other, you know, like on this level, and see how God works. So,
Oh yeah, and feel free to reach out to the missionaries and stuff. So.
all right, guys. God bless you. Have a good night. We'll see you in 2 weeks, because next week on Thursday evening it will be Holy Thursday, so we won't have Alpha Omega. We will be live streaming the Mass of the Lord's Supper, and so tune in for that. Otherwise, God bless you and have a good night.